Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park, and thank you for joining us here on Gulfstream today. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Acacia Courtney here to look at today's card, and we've got a big weekend on tap, really a big week on tap coming up. Of course, we do have 13 races.
13.
I had to
That's right.
13 races on Saturday, headlined by some really nice stakes action, and of course, the fun doesn't stop there. We do have on Monday starts kind of all the festivities for the sale here at South Florida.
It is the Fasig-Tipton Gulfstream sale here, so you can come on out. We will not be racing Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday next week, so take that into account. But on Monday, February 27th at 10 a.m., that starts the Under Tack show, and then Wednesday, March 1st at 4 p.m. is the actual sale, so you can come on out. Things will be open around here. Still lots of fun stuff to do and experience, and even just by seeing those fun commercials, it does look like it's going to be a really good time here.
Absolutely, and the Under Tack shows are really fun, so definitely come out here and check that out on Monday morning. And then, of course, the sale, as you said, happens on Wednesday evening. We will resume racing on Thursday afternoon as well and kind of get set and ready to go for the Fountain of Youth. So no rest for the weary. It's a jam-packed schedule from here until, of course, Florida Derby. As we get to today's card, though, Acacia, first we wanted to remind everybody tomorrow afternoon is Beat the Expert. You're up.
I am up. It's I guess we're trying to kind of break the Beat the Expert curse, because I think the past couple weeks for all three of us, we've had a ton of seconds and maybe just one winner. So hopefully a little bit better than that tomorrow, but it's a great time. You can get your picks in. We have 11 races on tomorrow's card. If you pick more winners than me, you could win one of those great polos, and of course being able to say that you beat the expert. So go to our Facebook page, our Gulfstream Park website, enter your picks in, and we've seen a lot of people participating in this. It's been a really great time, and it's fun to kind of follow along each Friday and see how each of us does, and hopefully I make a little bit of a better showing this week.
I don't know if fun would be the right word because it's been kind of brutal, at least for me. And
fun for the people that play, maybe
yes,
not for us.
Usually all it takes is two wins on the card to beat us. Actually, Ron started off in really good form during the meet, kind of tailed off. I
think we jinxed him.
We definitely jinxed him. Well, best of luck to you. I'm hoping that you tomorrow turn things around for the rest of us and for yourself there with Beat the Expert, but always a really fun competition to partake in. As we get to today's card, we'll shift focus to today and wanted to show you our featured wagers. Our wagering menu starts in today's opener. And we do have that rolling super high 5 carryover, $4,700 in there. Race 1 also kicks off that 50-cent early pick 5, races 1 through 5. Looking ahead to the 6th race on the card, starts the 20-cent Rainbow 6 carryover, $192,000 in that. And of course, race 7 kicks off our final pick 5 of the day. That is a 50-cent based wager, and we are good and good last time I checked. Yes, good and good. We unfortunately had some rain in the area yesterday afternoon, but it looks like a beautiful sunshiny day here today. So hopefully it can dry off. I think the turf definitely needed the rain. We went a couple of weeks without having a really good solid rain, and the main track could have used it as well. So I expect it to be drying out pretty quickly throughout the afternoon. It's a gorgeous day here.
It usually does, but definitely something to keep in mind in the early part of the card, especially if you're playing that Rainbow 6 or something like that with that nice carryover in it. But we are on the turf today, but perhaps a little bit more given it.
Yes, and how the turf was playing prior to the rain, it really did favor kind of speed type. So expect maybe a change in that today, and we'll be paying attention to how the turf and the main track is playing as well. As we get to today's opener, Acacia, we always started off with your early pick 5 ticket.
We'll give you a look. No single for me today. Early pick 5, using just 2 horses to start it off. It's 1-2 right now early in the wagering on my Johnny Be Good, but I had some interest in Cunavice. This is actually a race that I would have liked to go deeper in. I don't think it's as clear-cut as perhaps the board may show right now. Using 2 horses with Quant and Triquita in the next, then 3 by 3 by 3, $54 for me. I thought it was pretty tough to try and find a single, so a little bit less expensive in my late pick 5 today.
Okay, $54. Yes, I thought both the early and the late pick 5 sequence were tough. Obviously, the Rainbow Six, very difficult to find a single today, but we do start off the pick 5 here with today's opener. 5.5 furlongs onto the main track for this 6250. Non-winners of 3 lifetime condition, and I do think that the one, My Johnny Be Good, is the horse to beat. Has been facing much better company as of late.
He is. He's taking a very big drop in class now, and interestingly enough, after he was claimed last time out, he raced both without the blinkers and without Lasix last time for trainer Bruno Tessori. Now he's in the barn of Ruben Gracida. The blinkers do go back on. He does have a lightweight with Carlos Hernandez in the saddle, and he has really shown some speed. Last time, he didn't really show any of his typical speed. Maybe with the blinkers back on and that lightweight, he will show some more of that today. But obviously, the horse right next to him in Joey Sixpack looks like a main speed type as well. So I do kind of wonder tactically how My Johnny Be Good is going to fare. And 2 starts back when he showed that speed and was beaten just a neck, that was when he was pressured by Von Gusto in that race as well. And it kind of did set up for Morichel sitting just right behind.
And that was my concern here. What is he going to do from that rail post position? He might be extra sharp out of the gate, getting in with that lightweight and the blinkers on. So if that does happen from the rail post, you know, he's Joey Sixpack is probably going to be breathing down his neck the entire way. And Kunaviche isn't that slow either. He's been known to maybe press the pace. So I don't think he's fast enough to go to the lead over Joey Sixpack, but he's going to keep the pace probably pretty honest. The 5 El Señor de los Cielos, I know he doesn't like to win very often. He's 0 for 10 on the main track, and he's 2 for 34 in his career. But I think the race kind of sets up for maybe his stalking running style, and that's the only reason why I like this horse is I think the pace might fall apart in front of him.
It might, and he's a horse that I definitely respect. And in his last 2 starts, he sat a bit closer to the pace because on the turf and even some of his prior dirt races, he was just so far back. And I think one of the biggest reasons is that he's just 2 for 34 is that he's often just left with too much to do. And that's his running style. He really does kind of live up to his name and just close from the clouds from behind. And I think if he sits a bit closer, it looks like it certainly may set up for him. I wanted to use him on the pick 5 ticket, ended up just going with 2, but he's definitely a horse that I respect if there is so much pace right in front of him.
Well, let's hope so. There in today's opener, we get to the second race on the card, an allowance optional claiming event, going 9 furlongs onto the turf here. And wanted to go back and show you a spotlight replay first by showing the race that both Quant and Lead Along come out of.
And this race was 2 starts back for Lead Along, the most recent start for Quant. And Quant, the number 1, Lead Along, the number 2. Quant actually won the start and then kind of settled a little bit back around to 5th. Lead Along, I thought, was pretty keen early, and I saw that from him in his subsequent start, too. Quant kind of shifted to the outside in the first flight with Lead Along outside of her, and I think that the winner came along the rail towards the inside there, and that's just kind of where the stronger maybe position and finish came from. But I thought it was a good finish from both the second and third place finishers in there. Now, Lead Along in her next start really just didn't show anything in the stretch. Quant has kind of been freshened up since then. Obviously, the winner of that race, Somersault, is a horse that's been in excellent form. She came back to win again against a very tough field with a 91 by her speed figure. So I gave the nod to Quant today with John Velasquez in the saddle.
And it was kind of funny in that particular race because Paco Lopez had been unseated in just the race prior, and he came back and won on a. He took a somersault and he came back and won on a horse
Punch
named
play
Somersault.
of the year.
Exactly. But you're totally right. The horse has been in extremely good form. She's looked excellent in the afternoons there. So I think that Quant was just beaten by a better horse last time out, and I think she has more consistency versus the rest of the field, like Traquita, who figures to get bet here for Todd Pletcher. She went wire to wire last time out, but it was actually on a day that really favored speed types. Kind of the rail was out, and we just saw horses go around and around like a merry-go-round. And Traquita really was guided by that. She popped up from like a 69 by her speed figure to an 84, and I don't just quite trust that race.
I totally understand how you can kind of wonder where her speed came from. She definitely looks like she's much better on the lead, and maybe things just did kind of click for her, but she won it at such a cold price last time out of 18-1. So speed in her last two. She did go wire to wire in both of those. And as I said, maybe things just kind of clicked for her and they realized that she's much better on the lead, but I'm still kind of approaching things a little bit hesitantly with her. The one Golden Delicious you used, she definitely has to rebound off that last performance, but maybe now getting back to a turf will just help her out a bit.
And I like the post position. She should be tactical from the inside post. We're going 9 furlongs. She should be able to just stalk. She's had speed at 1.1 miles before. Dirt is obviously not her preferred surface, but her race 2 starts back. She doesn't, I don't think she's at the same level as Quant and Lead Along, but she's very consistent. And I think you're going to get a decent price on a horse like this when you have the likes of Christophe Clement, Bill Mott, Todd Pletcher in a race and this horse for Angel Medina. She really hasn't done much wrong. She's extremely consistent on her turf races. So that's why I liked her to try to get a little bit creative for exacta purposes. Lead Along, I'm kind of in the same boat with her last race. I know it says in the short comment, await room, and then empty. I didn't see anything from her or any excuse. So maybe it was too bad to be true. Maybe we can forgive her for that race and she'll get back to the race that she performed against Quant prior to that. But I think it really is between those particular fillies as we take a look at the third race on the card. Another allowance optional claimer, this time on the main track at 6 furlongs. And I believe we wanted to go back and show a spotlight replay of Curlin's Vow closing from off the pace. A strong run to the wire.
It was a very strong run. She was the number 2 that day. Now, of course, this is her going a mile. She's cutting back in distance to sprint here. So that is kind of where the question does arise. But she was last early. She came closing about 6 or 7 wide. Heck of a shot who did end up winning that race. Just had a much easier trip being towards the front. You can see Curlin's Vow out in the middle of the track. Now, cutting back in distance perhaps is not the most fruitful move for this barn, but this colt, he is a half to champion sprinter run happy. We know that there is obviously some sprint pedigree in there, and he fared pretty well sprinting in Maiden Special Weight Company at the start of his career. So that's kind of why I'm giving him another try today. Just kind of looking at the rest of the field too, I kind of looked back and forth trying to think if I could beat him, and I ended up giving him a test today, but by no means would I single him.
And with Curlin's Vow, I just don't know if we ever see horses make up that much ground on the main track here, especially at sprint distances. So that's why I was a little bit suspicious of him. I mean, if he catches himself that far back at this distance, I just think he's going to run out of real estate here. But he does have the class. We'll show you a stat, though, for Mike Tomlinson with this type of move on the dirt, cutting back from routes to sprints. Just 5 for 40, so 13% and a negative ROI, finishing in the money 55% of the time. But that stat alone, and I think the class level of this horse and the fact that Javier Castellanos in the saddle, it might be a little bit of an undervalue here. So the 3 Mr. Baker, we haven't seen him since late December, but he really is, I think, the speed, and he's one of the class horses in here in that he is a proven sprinter, whereas you don't know yet if Curlin's Vow, if this is his preferred distance.
No, you really don't, and he's had success going a bit longer, and you do kind of have those same questions to the outside with Force and Mr. Kisses, both of whom have been forwardly placed, but they're also kind of cutting back in distance. Mr. Kisses has run at sprints before, but he's kind of been a closing sprinter versus showing some speed going on, so I agree. I think Mr. Baker's going to be the main speed in here, and perhaps it is a little bit more of a manageable field than what he faced in his past couple, because last time he kind of showed speed and then stopped. So he does have to rebound from that performance, but he is a multiple stakes winner. He definitely has the back class, and Ralph Sadie did have a very good weekend.
And yes, looking at the entire race, I mean, we could see the one of us maybe show speed from the rail. Curlin's Vow won't be forwardly placed. I don't think Fast Fire is that quick either. And Force obviously is cutting back in distance, as is Mr. Kisses. So I thought that he might just have the tactical advantage, especially off the freshening, to wire the field there in the third race. As we get to the fourth race on the card, a maiden $16,000 event. 5.5 furlongs onto the main track, and you land towards the inside to the number 1 Family Crest here.
I did. This horse taking a bit of a drop in class here to the maiden $16,000 level and going back to the dirt. So if you look just at the dirt races, it's going from 35,000 maiden level in his debut to the 16,000 level now. And in his debut, it was without Lasix first. And he was unfortunately behind a runaway winner in Mo Cash, who won by 9. And that horse backed up that performance by winning the American Fabius this past Monday with another runaway win. So I do think that it was a pretty legitimate race. He was a big price in there too. And I think with the class relief, obviously he has to kind of work out a trip from the rail post position, but I hope that El Miseo Jaramillo can get him to kind of save some ground along the rail.
I'm still skeptical of that race. I know Mo Cash, he was legitimate in that field, and he came back to win the American Fabius, but he also dropped 5 points in terms of buyer speed figure. So it seemed like from a timing standpoint, horses regressed coming out of that race, even though Mo Cash did go on to win his next start. So I don't think Family Crest can afford to do that. If he regresses off of his 40 buyer speed figure, he probably won't win this race. That said, he clearly improved either getting to the turf last time out or getting Lasix for the first time, and he could build upon that performance to come back to the main track second time Lasix. So I can see both sides of the situation with Family Crest. I think he's definitely one to use, but the 5, Nico's on the run. I wanted to show a stat here from Michael Yates going from routes to sprint on the dirt at the claiming level, and the barn does very well. 4 for 15, 27%, a positive ROI of $8.57, and it's actually a decent sample size, so it wasn't like he had a whole bunch of bombers in there. Finishing in the money 53% of the time. This horse sits atop a 0 buyer speed figure. He was beaten 28 1/4 lengths last time out, but I do think that the cut back in distance should help him, and I think he should be at least forwardly placed in here, as he showed kind of glimmers of speed in both of his dirt starts.
He did, and in his debut race, it was against state-bred maiden special weight, so obviously much tougher than what he's going to be facing today. He was beaten by 13 1/4 lengths in that race as well. That was his only start sprinting, so he does have to move forward, certainly, but last time out he was also coming off of about a 4-month freshening. It was against a bit tougher, so perhaps the class drop, definitely the cut back in distance does look like it should suit him, and if he shows speed, that I think will be the key. But I do think that there will be speed to the outside in the 7 El Gran Noel, who on paper it does kind of look like this is the horse to beat. They added the blinkers last time, but it was going 9 furlongs on the turf, which I don't think he really wanted anything about that. He now goes back to sprinting on the dirt, and he drops in class 2 to this lower level maiden claiming. And for what it's worth, turf to dirt and maiden claiming Francisco D'Angelo, it's actually only a 4-horse sample size, but one of them was a win and 3 of them have been in the money, and it's on an ROI of more than $4. I don't completely trust this horse for the win, but I do think he'll be forwardly placed from the outside.
I kind of echo that too, because I think this is the horse to definitely beat on paper. You and I try to get creative with other alternatives, so if you're constructing your perhaps early pick 5 ticket, I do think the 7 El Gran Noel, you have to use a horse like this, and then maybe back yourself up with 1 or 2 other horses just for protection here. But El Gran Noel, if he's running the same races as he did, if he replicates the performance that he did at 6.5 furlongs, 2 starts back against higher level maiden claimers, he's probably going to win this race. He's got a good outside post position. He's got speed to his inside, so it could just be the perfect picture setting up for the 7 El Gran Noel in the 4th race. We'll take a look at the 5th, 62.59 winners of 2 lifetime event, 5.5 furlongs onto the main track here. And I kind of went with a really odd horse in here, but we'll get to that in a second. The 7 Baby Antonella, trying to get that elusive second victory on form.
Well, I think I went with an odd horse too. It's just kind of like looking at this field, and I just didn't really want anybody else on top. And I think that this is the kind of race that perhaps you can get a little bit more creative with, I guess. Certainly expect Proper Princess and especially Fulfilled Fantasy, the 3-horse on that big drop in class to take money, but I just didn't really know if that was exactly who I did want on top. I did think that perhaps tactically Baby Antonella might be able to improve, does get Tyler Gaffleone in the saddle, and her race 2 starts back actually was not terrible, and that's kind of what I'm going off of. That was the last time that Tyler rode her. She was impeded in the stretch by Taylor Preselli, who was disqualified in that race, and she's a relatively consistent sort, so we'll see if she's going to be able to get the win in this 7-horse field. If it's not here, I don't know when it's going to be.
I feel you. I went to the 2 Here Comes Rosie, who's 1 for 15 on form, 1 for 10 on a fast main track. I do like a little bit of the cutback in distance last time out. First off the claim, they stretched her out to the mile, and she actually made the lead, but she did not look comfortable in the first half of the race, and clearly it showed as she showed speed and then stopped. So sprinting is definitely her more preferred surface, and if you look at the class level, right, she only faced 62.59 winners of 2 lifetime, that level of claimers once sprinting. So I'm going to give her a little bit of a pass, thinking that she has some backlash. She recently did face State Bred Allowance Company, so I'm hoping we can get that to resurface here today. So I did use her, but the 3 Fulfilled Fantasy, she's probably one horse that you would want to use because she's got speed and she's probably taking the biggest class drop of the field.
She is. Her last start was against State Bred Allowance Optional Claiming types, and she showed some speed in there. It does look like she's going to show speed because she has done so both on the turf and on the dirt. She's even tried Stakes Company. She didn't finish well in that race, but they did think enough of her, and she did break her maiden against Special Weight Company.
That is the 5th race, and we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at the 20-cent Rainbow 6 and the late pick 5 right after this.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet, we are racing.
Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Now talking about the 20-cent Rainbow 6. It does kick off in the 6th race this afternoon, and I did come up with a ticket. We'll show you that, but by no means did I single. I thought it was actually a pretty difficult sequence today, and as we said, it does kick off here in the 6th race, using 2, 3, and the 7 in the first leg of the sequence, followed by just the 7, 8. I did want to use several horses in the 8th race today. It is a maiden special weight. I thought a couple different ways to go in there. So having coverage in that, race 9 using 3, and then capping it off with the 6, 10, and the 2, 3 in the final 2 legs. $57.60. I'm not going to lie, I had a tough time with the sequence today. I like the races, but I just didn't have a very strong opinion in it.
And that is one of the hardest parts about these multi-race sequences, because sometimes if you have a strong opinion, maybe you can put kind of a price horse, or if you want to single one of those horses that does promise to be a heavy favorite. But if you're trying to beat some favorites and maybe get a bit creative, then it does push that price tag up a little bit.
It surely does. We'll see your late pick 5 ticket after we get to the 6th race on the card. Once again, that pick 6 carryover, $192,000 today. We go out to the turf at the mile for this maiden $50,000 claiming event, and we also land on the 7 Al-Sanafi there. But we wanted to go back and show you the spotlight replay of Collateral Kitten, who did drop to the $50,000 level last time out and put in a big closing performance.
And I wanted to show this because it was a very impressive performance. Collateral Kitten, the one horse that day in the Ramsey Silks, saved ground along the rail. The pace setter was Roll Again Question, who was a Dane Kabisky horse at 12-1. And you could see him just kind of slipping through horses there. And he really was closing nicely. Quality Counts, the winner, did come on the outside that day, but I thought it was a huge performance from Collateral Kitten, who really kept on strongly, and it was very tight at the wire.
He was game inside. It looked like once he finally saw Quality Counts, it was inside or outside, excuse me, he kept on digging in. He did not want to lose that race. So you always like to see that kind of tenacity in a horse, especially down on the inside. Quality Counts did run back yesterday. Not a good performance at a pretty short price, but that was on the main track, so it could be an apples and oranges type of argument. Collateral Kitten, though, the thing, and I didn't want to show this stat because it's an alternative to maybe Al Sanafi, who will take some money. Joe Sharp, second off the layoff, going a distance of ground on the turf, 1 for 39. So surprisingly so, it's not a strong stat, but he did run a big race last out at the level, so perhaps one to consider. You and I both landed on the 7 Al Sanafi, I cannot say the horse's name, for Chad Brown, but I wanted to show a stat here for Chad Brown just to kind of solidify the work that he does with horses dropping from maiden special weight to maiden claiming company on the turf. And this is really everywhere he runs. This does not just, it's not specific to Gulfstream. He's 33% positive ROI over $2, $2.26 to be specific, and 65% in the money. He's coming out of a tough race. Delta Prince came back to win an A other than. Mudazin came back to win a maiden special weight. And this is who I landed on. I'm not trying to get creative here.
No, I'm not either. There were 3 next out winners coming out of that race. Delta Prince got an 88 buyer and another really game performance on last Saturday. Mudazin got an 81 for that next race. And he's also going from the special weight to the claiming. The blinkers do come off as well. He had 1 race with the blinkers, so clearly Chad Brown felt that with that 1 race, it was kind of a failed experiment, so they come right off. He tried it out, kind of saying, okay, this doesn't work. So it does look like this is the horse to beat in here, and certainly didn't really show too much in that race, but it was a very tough field. It was the last later race on the card, and though he did go off as the favorite, you do have to expect that just a horse from these connections will always take money.
Exactly, and the 2 Expedient to the inside. First-time starter for trainer Todd Pletcher, a horse that figures to take a little bit of play too. Luis Saez in the saddle for this debut. He does start, though, as a first-time, already gelded, so he's a first-time starter listed as a gelding. Does get Lasix for the first time, but does have a nice pedigree. He's by Lemon Drop Kid. He's out of Victory Lap, who was a multiple stakes winner going long on the turf. She was actually grade 2 placed, but she hasn't produced any superstars yet.
She hasn't, and that's kind of why I proceeded with a bit of caution with this horse. I did end up using him, but he was a $260,000 purchase, so I'm sure perhaps being gelded was not what they were hoping for anyway. But I think that those are the 3 horses that you probably would likely use in the start of the Rainbow Six if you're not going to single Al Sanafi. I was kind of actually hoping that that horse was in my pick 5 sequence so I could find a single, but that was probably the one I felt strongest about today.
Well, that does kick off the 20-cent Rainbow Six. Once again, a carryover over $192 in that particular wager. Today, as we get to the 7th race, a $16,000 non-winners of 2 at Lifetime race. A mile and a 16th on the turf. And this, of course, kicks off the 50-cent late pick 5.
We'll give you a look at my ticket. I, too, did not find a single, as you probably guessed by now, but I tried to keep it affordable. It's $36 here since I did go $54 in the early pick 5, using the 4, 7, and 8 to start things off. I just used 2 horses with Time Is Everything and Northern in the 8th race, but that is a tough field that I'm not exactly sure how things are going to play out in there. Using just 3 with Wathnon and Kitten's Dilemma in the 9th race, and then, just 2 horses in there, 2 deep in the 10th as well, and 3 in the finale, $36 today.
We get to this race. It's actually a very cheap ticket, so best of luck there. You've been doing a great job with your pick 5 tickets. I think you were alive in the last
4 out
race
of 5 yesterday.
Oh, that's always a little bit brutal. But best of luck to your ticket today. We get to this race in the 8 Veblen Good. I like her, and at the same token, sometimes she always just doesn't get the right trip. She hasn't won since breaking her maiden and actually her first start.
Yes, she broke her maiden in her debut and maiden $50,000 company. It was a very nice performance at her start. She went right into a string of starter allowance races, and they kind of kept her at that level for a while before finally dropping her to the 16 non-winners of 2 last time. Unfortunately, she found a sloppy track that was taken off of the turf, and she actually ran okay. She ran pretty well, finishing 3rd, beaten just by 2 lengths last time out, though she did take quite a bit of money. So I think that you can't really go off of that race. I think if you're looking just at the turf form, this is technically your first time on the turf going from starter allowance to this lower level, and that's why I gave her another try today.
It's a big drop from that starter allowance level at the $50,000 level to the $16,000 tag here today. And I remember when the race was still scheduled for the turf, I was kind of thinking, well, why the immediate drop in class? But she's clearly not going to win at the $50,000 starter allowance level. And I think this is the right move for her. They're just getting aggressive. We've seen Eddie Keneally be very aggressive with his horses so far this meet, and he's winning at a 20% average. So that just goes to show you that being aggressive with your horses sometimes does pay off. And the most recent starter allowance on the 22nd of December, that race was pretty tough. Sweet Ella, Todd Pletcher trainee, was in there. She's been holding her own against slightly tougher company lately. So Babbling Good does have the class in here, whereas Legend of the Kitten, well, we always say this, do not leave Mike Maker off of your tickets, especially on the turf, especially when this horse has been finishing just so close in the past 2 starts. I thought her race 2 starts back, you could excuse the defeat in there as a favorite, as Sober on Sunday. She was really sharp. She was forwardly placed in there. Legend of the Kitten was trying to close from off of it. Last time out, though, it looked like the pace kind of crumbled in front of him, really helping Legend of the Kitten break away. So does she kind of need everything to go her way in order to win?
Maybe she does, and maybe that's kind of why I had her in second. I certainly wouldn't leave her off because, yes, don't leave off Mike Maker on the turf, especially when Jose Ortiz is in the saddle. So you don't want to hurt yourself, especially at the start of the pick 5 when you have a horse like this, who sometimes you look at these horses from the Maker barn that have been the favorite in their last couple, taking money because of the connections, and you say, this horse just hasn't been able to win. I'm not going to use it on this ticket, and then the horse goes and wins. And maybe does so as the favorite. So I think that you have to respect her off of those last couple of races, and those were her last 2 in that level of competition. She was running against Either Then Company at Churchill Downs prior to that, so she has been facing tougher. A horse that's kind of continued to be going down the claiming ranks, though, is the number 4 Hussa for Kelly Rubley, who dropped from allowance to claiming 2 starts back and finally got back to a firm turf. Certainly didn't like the yielding up at Aqueduct, and that was, again, in tougher company. So we'll see how she handles the good going today, but I do think on the class drop, she's one to respect.
She could, and I hope that she shows a little bit more speed as when she showed against Allowance Company actually last year and even in 2015. But you do have to take note, the last time that she technically won was first time out in Ireland in 2014. So I think that's why the 7 Legend of the Kitten and Veblen Good seem to be standouts in the race, because beyond them, you're kind of grasping at straws. But a good way to start off the pick 5, that is in race 7, as we get to a State Bred Maiden special weight, 6 furlongs onto the main track. And this race I thought was really tough in order to kind of consolidate your ticket. The 12 Northern, though, we'll take a look going back to the 21st of January last time out.
By no means would I leave this horse off my ticket. We'll show the break, and this horse was out front with White Smoke, and I wanted to show going into the first turn because these 2 fillies, or excuse me, colts in here were so far ahead of the rest of the field early. Now, we did see White Smoke come back to win his next race at a big price with a 75 buyer speed figure, where Louis Duco and Jorge Ruiz have just been winning quite a bit, but it's fast fractions too. They went 24 and 4 and then 47 and 3. They went very quick. This was after a 5-month layoff for Northern. He was bet down for 50 cents to the dollar. In his debut, he was running against the likes of Practical Joke, and so you can certainly understand why for the barn he was taking quite a bit of money late, but I thought that he just wouldn't switch leads with others closing. Maybe he needed a race off the layoff, but maybe he was just tired from going so quickly up front, but I kind of proceeded with a bit of caution with him today.
He definitely could build upon that performance. As you said, they went quickly. He was pressured the entire way. And yes, he was swapping leads coming down the stretch, but he looked so tired.
Yeah.
And not to say that Wesley Ward didn't prepare this horse off of the layoff. I think he definitely did. I think he was just caught in a very unfortunate circumstance there, dueling on the front end. He was beaten, though, at 50 cents of the dollar. I think that might put a sour taste in some people's mouths. So the 12 Northern, though, I do think is one to respect. We do try to beat him, though, with an alternative, and that comes by way of the 6 Time is Everything. And before we get into this horse, the horse's previous performances, wanted to show a stat here for the past 180 days on the dirt sprinting at the maiden level. This is 180 plus day layoffs, excuse me. 3 for 11, 27%, a positive ROI, 36% in the money. So kind of a small sample size. Connections don't really do this frequently, but he does have some really good company lines, including Guinevere.
Yes, he does indeed, and he finished 5th in his last start. That was about 7 months ago, so he's coming off of a layoff, as you mentioned, with that stat. Of course, Guinevere did win the Grade 2 Saratoga Special and the Grade 3 Delta Downs Jackpot. We saw him recently finishing in the money in the Holy Bull as well, so keeping some good company in there. He did finish 2nd in his debut in the Slop in maiden special weight, so it is kind of hard to figure out how you can go off of that last race, because Guinevere is a multiple graded stakes winner, but the 2nd place finisher, Legacy Azteca, is still trying to get to the winner's circle. So it is a bit tough to go off kind of productivity of that race, but I thought the work tab was very encouraging, the way that this horse has been working in Palm Meadows, and you showed that stat, but just looking basically after a more than 180 plus day layoff in maiden special weight, the barn is 22% in the win with a positive ROI too. So I think all in all, they did a great job with this layoff.
And he was facing non-restricted company against maiden special weight company, and he's now coming back off the layoff to find a really soft spot against Florida bred. So I think that's another feather in the cap for a horse like this. But the 7 Entangled, a first-time starter for Ralph Nix, who's having a sneaky good meet. He had a very impressive maiden winner on yesterday's card in the Slop. I know you like the horse a little bit. This colt debuts with Lasix today, and we'll show you a stat for Ralph Nix with maiden special weight, first-time starters sprinting on the dirt, 3-year-olds, because we all know that he does great work with his 2-year-olds. I wanted to show a specific stat with his 3-year-olds, but still very strong, 22%, 41% of the money, $2.21 ROI. This horse is by Discreet Cat out of Spun Gold, $32,000 purchase, and we often see Ralph Nix and Tyler Gaffleone. I have a lot of success, especially with these maidens. So I wanted to throw this horse in, but quickly touching on the 13 exclusive package, a horse that you threw into.
I do think that you have to mention him because he has faced Stakes Company before. He's coming off of about a 6-month layoff. He did face Stakes Company on the turf at Monmouth back in August, and in his debut, he was 2nd to Bronson, who we did see winning here about a month ago, and who was also 4th in the Grade 3 Sanford.
There's a lot more to talk about that race. We'll get to it later on as we get to the 9th race to kick off the final pick 3 of the day. 9 furlongs on the turf for this maiden claiming event. And Acacia, you land to the number 3 here. Todd Pletcher, last time out, did drop down to the maiden 20 level.
Did drop down and had a far outside post. So that's why I'm giving this horse another pass today, because was only beaten by 3/4 of a length last time, and it was off of about a 9-month layoff as well. So now stretching out to the mile in 8th. He has had a race in special weight company against Milan is 16th, so we'll see how he does now. Now 2nd off the layoff.
I think the post is better. He definitely figures to maybe improve off of that layoff. I'm just a little skeptical of 9 furlongs. I think he might be better with a little bit less distance, say 7.5 furlongs. Maybe the mile and an 8th might be a touch too far. But the 9 Kitten's Dilemma is a horse who did face similar company, and it kind of looked like either he was lugging in, giving Luis Saez a little bit of a tough time, what have you, but he wasn't really ridden the last half of the stretch, and it was kind of a sneaky bad trip. So I'm going to give him another shot in here, but does pick up Jose Ortiz today, outside post. I liked him in here. You obviously used him in the exacta.
I did, and I totally agree with you. We also broke from the outside last time. A little bit of a troubled start last time out, so I think those are two that you have to respect in here. Rediscover for David Jacobson, of course, still knocking on the door.
Knocking on that door. And it's just, unfortunately, given the horse's running style, just can't always figure out the right trip. We'll get to the 10th race, though, to kick off the final daily double of the day, a mile on the turf for this starter allowance. And we have two pretty key scratches in the 2 Sweet Summer Sweat and the 9 My Good Venezuela. Two horses who figured to take a little bit of money, Acacia. But the 3 Holidays Saratoga, you liked this horse prior to the scratches, and you still stick with her here today.
I do stick with her. Now, we do have a scratch of Sweet Summer Sweat, who also did promise to be part of the pace scenario a bit, too. So maybe that does make things a little bit more difficult for Holidays Saratoga, but she's been working lights out. She closed from way off of it last time. I hope that she breaks a bit sharper today and is not so far back and left with so much to do. But I thought that Tyler Gaffleone really rode her and got her to the winner's circle, didn't give up on her. And for what it's worth, Wesley Ward with maiden winners last time out, making their second start. He wins 32% of the time, in the money 54%, and it's a 220 ROI. So giving this one a try to close into all of the pace in front.
And maybe I'm just a little jaded, because when I see a horse making up that much ground on the turf here at Gulfstream, I always proceed with caution, thinking, well, you know, maybe something was happening with the pace scenario in that race. And Holiday Saratoga and Sistine Sista, they both made moves from the back of the pack and wound up finishing first and second. But by no means do I discredit that performance. It's not always easy to make up that much ground. We also see the 10 Barika, who is a closer as well, although we could maybe see her sit a bit closer last time out. She got a beautiful trip under Luis Saez, a beautiful trip under Rajiv Marat, 2 starts back too. She just looks like she's improving, and she too gets the right setup, just as your top selection does.
It definitely does, and Armando de la Cerda is very good with putting back-to-back winners together on the turf. She's gone 2 in a row, looking for her 3rd in a row, so she notched that non-winners of 2 and non-winners of 3 right away at the $30,000 level, so now she will contest this starter allowance company.
We'll get to the 11th and final race on the program. 6 furlongs on the main track for this maiden $25,000 event. And we were just talking about the 2 Legacy Azteca coming out of the race, obviously, that an earlier horse comes out of against Maiden Special Weight Company, but he's had plenty of starts since then.
Yes, he has. He was beaten by 3/4 of a length behind Gonavera, but we'll show his race 2 starts back, his last one sprinting on the dirt, and there he is, the number 3. He ended up being beaten by about half a length that day. He's since been claimed. First off the claim, they tried him on the turf. Saffie Joseph Jr. has been doing an excellent job claiming horses this meet. He now goes back to sprinting on the dirt, which did look like was his most preferred surface. He gets Javier Castellano in the saddle. This is the last time I'm going to give Legacy Azteca a try, because even today, he just would not go by. And I thought that he is a pretty solid runner, but the fact of the matter is that he does go from a barn that's 2% on the year to one that's 21% on the year. And I just mentioned how well Saffie Joseph has been doing claiming horses.
That's why I only went too deep in here, because I thought that, you know, Saffie Joseph Jr., all of his horses in the afternoon, especially off the claim, they look fantastic. Just a great horseman. Javier Castellano in the saddle. Hopefully he can get this horse to victory today. But the 3 Avail Acati was one I just had a little bit of interest in. You see the pedigree, bred to be a good one, just hasn't quite panned out. A $500,000 purchase. Blinkers do go on. I like that move, because maybe we could see a bit more focus from him. He's not slow, so I could see him maybe sitting either a stalking trip or pressing trip. But going from turf to dirt today, I know the last dirt race was a bit of a hiccup. I'm just thinking that he's got a little bit more than what he's shown so far, and the drop in class should help.
Definitely should help. He's been working well for Barclay Tagg. He does go turf to dirt, and he cuts back in distance. He only sprinted in his very first start, where he was not yet running with Lasix.
Well, that's a wrap for us here. That's races 1 through 11. Once again, we have a carryover, $192,000 there in the 20-cent Rainbow 6. That kicks off in today's 6th race. Thank you for joining us here on Gulfstream today. Pete Aiello will be up next with those scratches and changes.
We have to take care of these horses that, give us so much joy.